Welcome to Far Out with Faust. I'm Faust Chicho, and today I'm sitting here with Nissim Malul. Let me tell you about Nissim. He is a speaker, he's a formulator, he's an educator, he's a health enthusiast, he's an NLP practitioner, neuro-linguistic programming. He's a hypnotherapist, and my favorite, last but not least, he is a modern day alchemist. He's spent over 25 years in the health arena. His studies have taken him around the globe. He's studied everything from Reiki to massage. He's a certified NLP practitioner. And that's just kind of what he was up to. Let me tell you what he's been up to these days. Okay. He's got an incredible line of products. The first one we're going to talk about is a water purification process that he patented, which uses 102 ionic magnetic minerals extracted from a rare source of volcanic rock. And I mean, you got to see the testimony about this stuff. People swear by it. And we're going to talk about that. And he also has an incredible line of nutrition and cognitive supplements that he has taken all his knowledge of nutrition and all his studies, self-development, and put that into this line of products. Some really incredible, high formulated, high vibration, pure supplements. And that's under a different product line. That's Native Mystic. And then for dessert, and my favorite, you guys got to see this. I mean, he has his own line of chocolates that are all handmade from scratch. And he uses like 35 various Chinese tonic herbs, minerals, and spices. And it's this gorgeous. When you guys see these chocolates, I mean, don't go to this website if you're hungry, or maybe go to this website if you're hungry, because my God, I always think there's chocolate is so good for you, like good chocolate, real chocolate, dark chocolate. And you just can't find it anywhere. And when you do find it, it's like processed. And so Nissim had the same idea, and he did something about it. You guys have to check out this website. It's CACAO alchemy.com, www. I mean, just feast your eyes on that. But that's dessert. Anyway, Nissim, forgive the long-winded intro. Thank you for beaming in, man. It's so great to have you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a pleasure. I do a lot of things, and many times I'm like, okay, there was periods of my life where I was like looking at other people that have one thing, and like, why am I not like that? And then slowly I accepted that, and someone told me, look, it's okay if you're interested in many things. It's okay. Just let it be expressed.
It's
so
true.
I do many things. I don't know. I like the formulas that I make. I have 100+ formulas. Friends tell me stop making formulas. Like, sell what you have and stop making new ones. So
I mean, that's impossible for some people. They just don't operate like that. Or if they did, they wouldn't be very happy. I mean, I that's my opinion. I think. I mean, I don't know if you should stop just because your friends are like, dude. I mean, if you're happy doing it and that's what you love to do, so
yeah, just flows.
Exactly.
When I say that it took 25 years to reach that place of studying, at age 40, I got something shifted inside of me that a level of trust and connection to this kind of work that allowed me to just let go, and formulas started coming in.
Yeah.
Like all the, after a long time of work, culmination of a long period of internal work, then the gifts show up, or bigger gifts show up, and things start to integrate and solidify, and that's where it started. Actually, the age 40, just literally I make the formulas by intuition. So everything I studied, I leave out, and then I believe that plants and nature knows better than me. And I don't claim to know better, and I tune into the plants, and I'll make a formula. I'll prepare it according to my knowledge, and then I'll tune in to each plant how much of it wants to be in the formula. And maybe I'm not feeling this one, even though I wrote it. Oh, This one doesn't want to be there. Okay, so I accept that. Versus, putting the white coat and the title. No, that's not where I go.
Right.
Because if we look at traditional medicine man, medicine women in in the Amazon, they claim to listen.
That's right.
They don't claim to know anything, and then they claim to listen. And,
it's such a different mindset compared to the Western model of things, and having to go to someone who quote knows, as if knowledge is this religion that it's become so dogmatic. It's crazy, but it's you spent a long time studying and traveling, and you've been really I was impressed to see all the places that you've gone to and all the different techniques and philosophies that you studied, and just how many years you spent doing it. I mean, if you tell me at 40, that's when everything, I think that's just literally, you planted all this fertile soil, and then, with all these seeds, and all of a sudden everything started growing. I didn't come from anywhere. I think it came from your curiosity and all your studies. It's amazing.
When I was 18, I really resonated with the model of Chinese medicine, traditional Chinese medicine. And the whole concept of preventative medicine rather than curing a symptom or solving a symptom that shows up, because there's a deeper root cause to that symptom. If we are, it's not if, we are part of nature, and a tree, if it has a problem, then it's from the roots. Something's happening. Didn't show up today, it showed up over time. Something was created, and then the leaves turn colors, or something is happening to the tree, and now it's sick. So instead of, let me spray something on the leaves, no, let me check the roots. So the same thing as there's no shortcut for the problem to appear, there's no shortcuts to resolve it, and there's no shortcuts in life, period. And I got that on some level in a very young age, and like I said, around age 18. And I started dabbling into energy work, into Reiki, into a little bit Chinese medicine, into back then veganism, when it was really, we're talking 28 years ago. This, it was, but not like today. And really exploring that entire mindset and field of healing and alternative healing.
Wow, you were so far ahead of me when I was your age, or when I was that age, I should say. Yeah. It reminds me, somebody said this, and it was in regards to the way humans address illness, and of course it came in response to everything that happened in the last year and a half, but it was a wonderful, I think, I guess you would call it an analogy, but he said, if you're tracking a population of dolphins that lives, let's say, in the north, and you've been tracking them for a long time, and you know what's up with them, and if one or two of them start to get sick and they start to come down with these new symptoms or whatever, and then more of them do, what do you do when you get to that population? What's the first thing that you look at with the population? Like, what? And I was just like, you would look at what's in the water. He's like, that's right. You would look at what's in the water. You wouldn't look at the animals to see what's changed for them. You would look at what's changed in their environment, because you already know what's up with the animals. You've been watching them for how long? And I was like, that's so true. With us, we look at each other and we're like, oh, who has what, who's spreading what. But when we look at animals, that's not exactly how we would address the situation. It's just amazing how we separate ourselves,
Yes,
from nature. So I just thought that was an interesting analogy that he used, and so true. But back to what you were saying. So you got into, and I was listening to you talk about like the difference between the Chinese model and like even the between the Chinese model and the Tao model, and how they would address certain things differently, and then the further west you go, the bigger the perspective shift in how to do just about anything. But if I would love to hear you talk a little bit about that as well, like what you've learned in your travels and studies, as far as, God, it's such a different perspective.
Okay. So it's specifically about the Chinese versus the Taoist, or?
I mean, that's a fascinating difference to me, but I think we will be able to draw the differences of those two and then look at our models from there.
Okay, so yeah, the Eastern, or the alternative, is more of preventative medicine, and then actually in China you pay the doctor when you're healthy, not when you're sick.
No shit.
Because if you're sick, he failed.
Wow, that's true? That's true.
I've heard that, the traditional doctors, that's how it is. If a person is under
can
the
you
care
imagine? Wow, this
right?
country, doctors would be broke here. They would be fucking.
No, not at all. It's just like, it's the same thing, like plastic versus hemp plastic. Just change the mindset, like building materials. Use hemp materials versus the crap. You'll make the same money. Big corporations, you'll be fine.
But incentivize the health. Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
So you can be preventative approach, and the doctor or the MD with all his knowledge can be like, hey, yeah, exercise, meditate, breathe, sleep,
get enough vitamin D and E and zinc,
exactly.
and fly, man. What can you imagine?
Do yoga,
Yeah.
So the big difference approaches, and to say something in relation to what you said about the dolphins. So check this out. Remember, there is when the vaccines showed up, there was Louis Pasteur, had the germ theory, that the germ is creating the problem or the sickness. And then at the same time lived Bechamp, which is another scientist. And he said, no, it's the terrain, the water. That's right. He said. So tying it back to, there is no shortcut. If I am, and to Chinese medicine and to the even Ayurvedic, if I am actively maintaining to keep the terrain clean, then that will affect my entire system's integrity and health. Okay.
Yeah.
I cannot live in a room and, it's that germ created my sickness. No, well, let me look at the room. It's kind of dirty, and same thing with my body. If my body is dirty, I can't say, that germ thrived because the terrain is dirty. So therefore, that blows away the whole quick cure or quick fix or one pill. One pill cannot clean the body completely and prevent that, germ from duplicating itself, from succeeding.
Right.
It can kill it and there will be a price, because if I'm doing something to kill that germ, I'm killing something in the body. I'm adding more insult to injury to my terrain. Right. And I'm even creating a longer path to healing.
That's right. I mean, if and look, the truth is, a lot of people don't know what the consequence of antibiotics are yet. That is not, it's not been widely publicized. I'm sure and people who are, really plugged into health and what's actually happening outside of allopathic mainstream. I can use a bunch of words to finish that sentence, but I'm going to refrain. But you start to realize the dangers of antibiotics and the rampant antibiotic use in our society. I mean, just to give you, and you probably know this, I'm sure, but for our listeners, glyphosate, the active ingredient in Roundup that's causing cancer all around the world, is an antibiotic. It's a patented antibiotic. Now, countries like Japan said, wait a minute, we don't want to buy that product. They're like, why? They're like, because it says right here it's an antibiotic. We're just going to spray an antibiotic all over our. Well, antibiotics are good, right? Well, if you're dying and you have an infection, yeah, I mean, they're great for soldiers with gunshot wounds. They can save a life, but they should be for emergencies. But we use them literally on everything, and that's why we're one of the many reasons why we're having a problem. But just to put that in perspective, antibiotics. My God, I grew up in a family. I don't know about you, Nissim, but everything was just get some antibiotics, get some antibiotics. You don't realize what you're doing to your body with it.
Right. It ruins the gut flora as well. It ruins the delicate balance of the gut flora. I grew up with a lot of antibiotics. I used to have severe acne, and I was go to doctor. Here's another round. Tetracycline, it was called.
That's right.
For the skin.
That's right. And they still do it. They still want to prescribe it. I'm like, this is supposed to help with, I asked you to look at a cyst or whatever, and you want to give me antibiotics. I'm like, really? Like, well, yes, preventative. And I'm like,
it takes more time.
I'm like, I don't want it. I was like, maybe if you want to make me a prescription for emergencies, I'll keep it. But what? It's just crazy how, and now it's being linked to, they're doing studies and saying that people who are prescribed, antibiotics more than twice a year have a much higher average of depression and all these different illnesses. I mean, which makes sense, but yeah. So we have to get into this incredible water purification process that how did you discover this? So I want to spell this for our listeners in case they're interested. It's called Auro or Auro Gold, AURO, liquidgold.com. Can you tell me a little bit about how you discovered this process and how you ended up with it?
So I don't want to take the credit for the one who's discovering it. Okay. So the one who discovered it is actually a scientist that's over 100 years old, and what I'm doing is pretty much educating the public about minerals and providing this solution. And I also use this as an ingredient in several of my other products. Okay, so the process was invented 40 years ago, and it was the process to extract the minerals from volcanic rock into a state where they are bioavailable or can be assimilated by a living cell, and then it was discovered that they have water purification properties, and they neutralize over 250 contaminants. Including glyphosate, including chlorine, fluoride, bacteria, heavy metals, pesticides, pharmaceuticals, petrochemicals, an entire list. And
wow. Well, fluoride too. I was going to ask that.
Yeah, fluoride too.
Holy shit, that's incredible.
And glyphosate.
Wow.
I think also atrazine. I'm quite sure also atrazine.
What about has there been any testing with I don't know, there's a laundry list of them, but the PFAs, the forever chemicals?
I have the test. I have an entire list. There's a lot of chemicals, so I think so. But I have to go and reference it. But the interesting thing is that even if we don't have that on the list, we go test it, and hey, it works. So it's just like, hey, let's pay the $300 or the $400 to the test, and we prove it. We show it. So
that's awesome.
It's like bring it on kind of thing, because we even showed we did a test in last March about influenza virus, and we showed 99.99% gone 30 seconds after contact.
Wow. And so just so everyone can kind of see what this I mean, you can get a bottle like this, and then what you do is you're literally going to just put a few drops into your water supply, and then you have to let it sit. What's the wait time?
So that's a good question. So it really varies upon the type of water. If a person would use tap water, then what I would recommend is to prepare it overnight. So prepare yourself a gallon, shake it well, put enough, it's 5 drops per each 8 ounce. So whatever, a gallon, that's what, 4. So 5, that's 20, about 20, 25 drops, put it in, shake it, let it sit on the counter with the cap open. Why? Because some of the contaminants escape as gas. Gas. Okay. So that's tap water. If you're using filtered water, then I would say just give it a few minutes, just shake it well, give it a few minutes. So here's the science really quick about like how the science, because people ask, how does this work? So when we take a glass of water from the tap, you don't normally see contaminants, right, floating around. Why? Because the contaminants are, first of all, they're active and they have strong molecular bonds to the water molecules. So they're in clusters. Okay, the contaminants are in clusters connected to the water molecules. When we put the minerals, what happens is like a zipper. It unzips the cluster. It unzips the cluster, and the contaminants fall to the bottom, and they become inactive because they no longer have strong bonds. So they're no longer active. So they fall to the bottom. They're inert. That already, after 20 seconds of applying the minerals, it already starts that process.
So all these chemicals, and that this is the biggest problem with them, is when you hear them talk about glyphosate and these PFAs, they're water soluble, right? And that's why you can't see them. That's why they blend so well with the water. You can't tell that you wouldn't be able to look at your tap water and say, oh yeah, there's about 250 contaminants in there. You wouldn't be able to tell because they're all water soluble. That's how they got in there. Well, some of them got in there because they're part of the purification filter system that, the government and the states use, but many of them got in there not on purpose, which is another conversation, but go ahead. I'll try not to interrupt you again.
No, that's good. That's a good, because what you said is pretty much what I've explained the science of it. It's molecular bonds.
Right.
So it's tied in. So once those molecular bonds are loosened or unzipped, so to speak, that cluster is unzipped and they fall to the bottom, they become visible.
So you can see them at the bottom of
them at the bottom. So if a person's doing like tap water, then it will have way more residue after, let's say, they leave it overnight, and they'll see a layer on the bottom. Now people ask me, hey, can I drink that layer as a point? It's actually, it's more healthier to drink that entire water with that layer versus the water that was before without the minerals.
Wow.
Because that layer. So what I do is I reach to the bottom and I pour it in my plants because it's the best fertilizer.
So this is mind blowing me, because it's almost like you're composting these, what we would call contaminants. I mean, they're just chemicals, but when they're in the water in that form, they're not good for the body, and they're usually not good for the soil either. But how does that happen? I mean, can you explain to me in a scientific way how you take a bunch of all these different chemicals in the water, and you put this stuff in, and so it breaks them down, they end up at the bottom, and then not only are they rendered inert, and so they're separated, you can see them, but they're no longer dangerous for you. They're actually they're healthier for you, and you could also use them to like feed your plants. I mean, it's crazy to me.
Yeah, it's because it changes the molecular structure to a molecule that is not toxic or actively toxic. So it will change the form of the fluoride. Because some fluoride is good, some chlorine is good. It just changes it to a form that is not toxic to the body, and those contaminants are tied with these valuable minerals.
Oh, I see. So it's kind of unlocking. It's unlocking some of the minerals, and I know it unlocks some of the oxygen in the water. And is that part of the unzipping process? Is like I guess unzipping is a great word to describe it.
It increases the oxygen content in the water, yeah, which is one of the reasons why the water is kept clean, which there is no system that will keep water clean. You know, from one application, I have here a sample from 12 years ago that we did on a local man-made lake, and we sent it to a lab, and we took a sample and we sat in the office and we were talking, and I treated the sample, and in front of their eyes it turned from like invisible to like completely invisible. An entire layer fell down, which then we took it to a lab and we showed that we reduced E. coli from 200,000 to 20, not 20,000, 20. That's 99.999%.
Wow.
That was one of the major things, which was pretty horrible because that's like sewage.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but that's most lakes these days, unfortunately. You know, that's why people drink lake, you know. I'm just talking to a friend of mine and he was like, man, I think they were in like Alaska and they were lost and they were so thirsty and they got to a river and they were just like, fuck it. And they drank and they all got, you know, I think within like 2-3 hours, every single one of them was sick as hell. I mean, throwing up, coming out of every end. I mean, you can't just drink water. People don't, you know, I mean, people don't realize that. I mean, our bodies they're no longer, maybe they never were, but we're certainly not designed for that anymore.
Exactly.
If only they had some of this, it probably would have saved their asses, I bet. I mean, it would have really, man, talk about a lifesaver. I'm bringing this with me whenever I travel.
Totally. Yeah, totally.
That's so cool. And it's remarkable, you know, there's a because you can't always bring your filter with you, right? But something like this, you can travel with. You can go anywhere.
It's aside from filtering, it's the minerals that are valuable, because you know, every biological process, plant, animal, human, requires a mineral to activate it. It's like a spark plug in a car. So it's the same thing. Like we need 72 minerals a day as a biological system, and we require those minerals from food. Now, our soil has been depleted more than 150 years. Therefore, the nutrition, first of all, the mineral content is low. So even organic maybe has 17. Where is the rest? Where's 50, 55 more that the body cannot manufacture? These minerals are inorganic. It comes from volcanic deposits, from the deep earth. It's rocks. Okay. So unless a person is eating biodynamic, they're not getting the full nutrition. Now, here's another thing. What is nutrition? Or the presence of, let's say a lettuce has specific type of vitamins, essential fatty acids, even amino acids that it is supposed to, by the book, to provide. Now, if it did not get a full spectrum of minerals when it was growing, it will not give all the nutrition it's supposed to give. Therefore, we are on a global level starving nutritionally from the soil up. You know, unless we are aware of the problem and really supplement our minerals and, hey, start growing your food. They use this in agriculture for 40 years. If you grow food with this, you're getting true biodynamic, fully beautiful, amazing produce.
So when you say grow food with this, you mean put a little of this into the water that you're watering your plants with? What do you mean when you say grow your food with this?
You can add it one time to the water. When we start growing certain crops, you know, we water one time, we add it to the water, and then once it starts growing, we do a foliar spray. We prepare water in a sprayer with the minerals, and we spray once a week under the leaves.
Under the leaves.
And, you know, they use it in cannabis also, and it grows huge trees.
Oh, this is probably how they use in the hydroponics, I bet. And so they're so strong that all you need is one application when you plant it, or and people germinate. Let's say they germinate different seeds. Yeah.
So they germinate in the water with the minerals. And then foliar spray once a week, and then you're getting the plant is actually getting the nutrition it needs to maximize its potential.
So tell me if I understand this right, Nissim. So when you apply this in that way, what you're doing essentially is you're unlocking and breaking down some of the chemicals that are binded or bound to a lot of the molecules that plant would not be able to absorb because of the soil, because of the water. There's a double combination going on in our world right now that keeps us from getting the nutrition that we need. And it's not just the water, it's the food. It's the monoculture, the industrial agricultural complex that is in place right now is part of the reason why we're so unhealthy, especially in this country. But what this does essentially is it allows the plants, same thing it does for people, I guess, but it allows the plants to absorb more of its natural vitamins and minerals from the soil. And then we eat healthier by eating those. Is that accurate?
Yeah, exactly.
That's incredible, dude. That's like, when maybe this was their original idea, but when they are spraying Roundup, glyphosate, they have it in every iteration, but whether they're spraying it, because, I heard now that, and they've probably been doing this, but they spray it right on the wheat, right? Because it creates this buoyancy and it's a bigger yield. So they're getting more money, but what that means is that there's not a single slice of bread in this country or, pretty much throughout the world. The places that haven't banned it yet, which is the majority, that is not affected. There's not a bowl of cereal that, you can't get up and you think you're eating your Wheaties and or having, a healthy breakfast. But if that wheat or that bread was born, and I say born, but if it was raised in America, it was sprayed, and not just was it grown, but at the end, they literally spray the wheat. You can't wipe that off. Do you understand? You know what wheat looks like for everyone listening at home. They're spraying the wheat before they sell it. They're dousing it in glyphosate. So in case you don't understand what that means, there was a case recently because a janitor had to spray Roundup for 20 years and he got Hodgkin's cancer. It's called the Monsanto Papers. You should read all about it. Monsanto was found guilty and they're now paying out class action suits because of the cancer that their glyphosate causes, their Roundup causes. This is what they're spraying on the bread. So if you're listening to this and you're giving your kids, peanut butter and jelly on sliced bread every day and sending them to school, start buying organic bread because that bread is more likely than not got a lot of glyphosate in it. And that's my spiel about glyphosate. I'm sorry, Nissim. I wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to tell people who have children to try to protect them. I can't help it.
Glyphosate is one of the causations and exacerbations of childhood autism.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Dr. Stephanie Seneff, she lives in Hawaii. She was commissioned to research this whole thing. Her whole thing is glyphosate and how to mitigate it and child autism and I spoke to her on the phone actually. Anyway, I don't want to. There was something there because she got apprehensive when I talked about a solution, but.
No, I'll have to get her name from you.
So go to where the person will go to speak about a problem, but then, okay, you're already on the,
Well, so, these days you have to be very careful, especially if you're practicing in any capacity in the mainstream, or you don't have your own clinic, or, right. I'm just talking about this the other day. They really got them by the short and curlies. They just don't have any wiggle room. And I think I put myself in their shoes and I'm like, you make it through how many years of schooling, you're a doctor now, you're getting the money that you always dreamed about, and you're paying off all your bills, and you're not going to start going against the grain of the machine you just made through. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, most people aren't, whatever they see, they're going to be like, this is what they do. I mean, this is what they bought into. And people are like, oh, they're a doctor, they know better. I'm like, no, that just means that they're further indoctrinated into this thinking that is so flawed. And I respect doctors. I have the utmost respect for doctors, and the things that they can do are miraculous, especially surgeons. But the system that they're taught, as you know, is incredibly flawed. It's incredibly flawed as far as creating a healthy society. I mean, just look at us, look at our environment, look at our society right now.
What I've learned through all this and many years of working with also these minerals I've been working with for about 14 years. And I don't want to go too deep. The rabbit hole is very deep, and is way too deep than what I'm even willing to have on any interview in my life, because I went through crazy stuff with this. Crazy. I mean, just from describing what it does, you could maybe understand where I'm going with this. So what I've learned is to, keep my mouth shut and focus on solutions, because problems there's all over. And if I feed into that, then I'll get those people knocking on my door and saying, oh, you're talking too much, So here I am. You want a mushroom supplement, you want an adaptogen supplement, you want some minerals, this is what it does. You want to use it? Oh, it helps you? Cool. Oh, it helps other things in your body? Amazing. Right on.
Yeah,
that's it.
You're absolutely right. And thank you for keeping me on track, because I could go off the rails quick. So,
me too. I know. That's all. But I'm actively not wanting to do that, because I've learned the hard way.
You're wiser than me. I'm still learning, but I would love to talk to you.
You don't want the knock on the door.
No, I don't. I got enough virtual knocks on my door, Believe me, I know. But speaking of adaptogens and mushrooms, you have some incredible supplements on your Native Mystic line. And I heard, I gotta get you to tell me. People don't realize what an incredible supplement and how good for you, like all these different variety of mushrooms and just the fungus family, and how vital it is to our system, not just as a nutrient, but for cognition. And can you tell our listeners a little bit about some of the incredible products that you have, and what they do, what they've been shown to do?
Sure. Well, the context for everything that I do is, like I said, preventative medicine. So I want to provide something on a small amount every day consistently that will build and maintain a strong immune system. Okay. That throughout time, one person, taking it for 2 months, they're like, oh, what? My system, actually, I'm feeling something stronger. I can't explain it. Yeah, that's what I want. Okay. So it's not like I work basically with a collection of Taoist herbs, and we talked about the difference between Chinese medicine and Taoist medicine. Taoist is more focused on longevity. So tonic herbs, herbs that are safe to take every day. Adaptogens in other language, which would be herbs that reduce the stress response in the cell. So if a person would reduce the stress response in the cell, that means that the cell would live longer. Okay, so longevity herbs. Okay, so so they say that there's Taoist monks that lived over 200 years old. I believe that.
Yeah.
Okay? I tend to believe that, because the longer I live, the younger I get. Seriously, the more inner work I do, the more everything, I'm getting younger. I don't feel 46. I don't feel 46 at all.
Right.
So these monks used to dose on, they used to do like a 1 year on one herb, Shizandra, Goji, Reishi, they drink the tea. They do like a 1 year of each, and they lived in longevity. So a lot of my herbs or a lot of my formulas are based on Taoist medicine. Yeah, a little bit Ayurvedic, a little bit of Thai medicine, so from Thailand, and some Amazonian herbs, and some herbs from the Middle East. So pretty much the whole world. A lot of it is Taoist because they have a wisdom from observing nature and how animals and what animals ate for certain conditions. And so my formulas have, so you said mushrooms, the whole mushroom kingdom. I work with about 27 different medicinal mushrooms. And mushrooms in and of themselves are immune boosting. So they will actually boost the immune response or boost up the immune system and able to fight sickness and maintain an internal clean environment. Okay, so anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, anti-depression, elevating consciousness. So I actually have an entire list: improving circulation, good to maintain balanced blood sugar levels, and a lot of the mushrooms that I use. For instance, I have a formula here. Let me pull it out. Show you. Infinity 8. Is it?
Yes.
So Infinity 8, and they're in powder form. I used about 11 mushrooms here that have been researched by actually MDs using them in conjunction with chemotherapy and radiation.
Wow.
Yes. And I was so happy that there's research, extensive research. So I used the 11 main mushrooms, chaga, agaricus, reishi, turkey tail, shiitake, a few more, and lion's mane, to create a formula that basically would boost immunity. And so these mushrooms are actually used in conjunction with chemo to reduce the effects of the chemo, to help the body and to maintain a strong immune system. And when it comes to radiation, to help the body recover from the myelin sheath on the nerves, because that is damaged. Yeah. So these mushrooms they're not plants, they're not animals, they're mushrooms.
Right.
They have their own kingdom. And talking about intelligence, they have super intelligent, they know what to do. And I have these little, for instance, these little spoons here.
Oh yeah, I have one too. I love these that you make.
And so in Chinese medicine, there's a whole thing about absorption of herbs into the body. Now, absorption starts on the tongue. Okay. Therefore, why is that? Because the body wants to recognize the taste on the taste buds, and it recognizes the signature, the taste signature of the herb, and which is part of the absorption. Mm-hmm. Now, Chinese teas, amazing. Some of them very difficult to drink, and you have to drink 6 cups a day.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, how can I condense that? So I work with extracts. So each of these is, the herbs, you can take an herb and grind it, and that would be a regular herb. You can take 10 pounds of the herb and extract them in a certain process to 1 pound, and that will be a 10-to-1 extract. Mm-hmm. Therefore, instead of taking 1 gram, I'll take 1/10, twice a day. Tastes nice. Tastes like mushrooms.
Yeah.
It has 11 mushrooms and 8 tonic herbs like goji, shilajit, astragalus, schizandra, all longevity tonic herbs, jujube. And when taken on a daily basis, it helps maintain a strong immune system. Mm-hmm. Now, aside from, I would say, the formulas that, I feel this right away. It's already calming. Adaptogens meet the body where it's at, and they reduce the stress response. So wherever I am, it's kind of a balancing, and the fact that it's on the tongue, immediate absorption.
Yeah. Okay. It's just, yeah. And, this is a big thing that I think it's really got to hit mainstream eventually, but because I don't think that there's been a large correlation, among the public with how much your diet and what you're putting in your body, your mouth, your gut and how much that affects your mood, and the ability to regulate your mood, and how, everything. I mean, when I say gut, first of all, that starts here. It starts in the nose. It starts in the mouth, right? Because that's literally where your gut begins, right? In those two orifices. So there's been incredible studies done about how much diet affects mental health, or emotional health, I should say. And so I'm really I'm looking forward to that coming out more and more, because it's just amazing how people don't realize that what they're eating is affecting them emotionally. But yet it absolutely is.
When the food is impure,
mm-hmm.
The food is impure and then it's laced with pesticides or chemicals, then it disrupts the delicate balance of the gut flora, which the gut flora is also participating in creating neurotransmitters such as serotonin. So we're messing up our serotonin, the happy molecule, the happy hormone, and then when that's messed up, people go and take pharmaceuticals to balance the serotonin levels. Wait. Oh, McDonald's or a pharmaceutical pill? Wait.
I mean, I want to talk. I got so many things I want to talk to you about, but before we move off nutrition, I read something that I was like, it was like a missing piece of my one of the many missing pieces of my body of knowledge. But I read it on, I think it was your Native Mystic site. I think it might have been your Oro Gold, or a Liquid Gold site. But somebody was writing something about the difference between organic and inorganic elements that we find, because, and I've got this a lot, like I'm made the mistake of opening my mouth about, the ingredients to certain things that are being put in our bodies via injection. And, you can find a lot of things on that list, which in my opinion, don't belong in the body. And in a lot of ways, I say, why in God's name are those things in something being injected into the body anyway? Like, what are they contributing? Why is there arsenic, in this thing? And people come back at me and they're like, there's arsenic in apples, dude. There's, just pick up an apple seed and bang, you got, I'm like, yeah, but I'm not eating apple seeds. Yeah, but they're like, yeah, but it rubs off on the apple. And I'm like, okay, so what do you say? You know what I mean? Like, what do you say? Like, but I read this great article on your site about how, there's a huge difference between what we create in a laboratory and then what nature creates naturally, organic and inorganic, and the way that the body treats those two things. The difference between the arsenic found in an apple seed or an apple that you eat is vastly different compared to the arsenic that we use to freaking poison rats, and that we're putting in some of these things that are ending up in our bodies. And I just wondered if you could, if you wanted to talk, if you wanted to
gladly. And please. Thank you for bringing that up. Actually, I didn't even. Amazing. So the misconception or misunderstanding, okay, minerals or elements like arsenic is a mineral, is an element that comes from the earth. Okay, such as aluminum, cadmium, mercury. So all minerals come from deep earth. Okay, they erupt through volcanic eruptions. They form rocks. Different parts of the planet have different rock formations, therefore different compositions of minerals. Okay, now here's the thing. When, like aluminum, for instance, in its mineral dissolved salt form is actually utilized to regulate stomach pH for digestion. Lithium in its mineral dissolved form prevents mood swings. Mercury also has a role in, I'm not sure exactly, but something related to the immune system.
Wow. I would have never, I mean, it makes sense because they appear in nature. So, they're like, I mean, it's mind blowing to me. Go on.
Exactly. Look, there's Lithia Springs in Oregon, in Ashland. People go drink the water. It helps them with depression.
Wow.
How about that? They're drinking lithium water.
Yeah.
Cadmium, all kind of different minerals that a mineral can have, let's say aluminum. You're not going to eat a pan and digest it, because that's in its heavy metal form. Therefore, if I eat aluminum, it's in its heavy metal form, it will sediment in the liver. If I eat a mineral in its ionic dissolved bioavailable form, such as found in bananas, there's more aluminum, food grade aluminum in 6 ounces of bananas than in 8 cups of water with our minerals, because our minerals also have aluminum in its ionic form. So when we have minerals in their ionic form, they are utilized by the body, flushed out, utilized, flushed out, just like a mineral is supposed to be. That's why we're supposed to receive everyday minerals from food. If a person works in a factory that has different toxic heavy metals and they're breathing it every day, they're receiving heavy metals every day, which is not flushed out, which is sediments in their liver and then creates neurological problems, and people get Alzheimer's, people get all kinds of stuff. That's
right. And they're it's amazing, but not surprising. They're looking at the brains of Alzheimer's, people who died with Alzheimer's, and they're finding heavier concentrations of aluminum consistently, and that's not the aluminum that it's obviously the aluminum in its heavy metal form, and it's crossing the blood-brain barrier. And ironically, not surprisingly to some of us who have been going down these rabbit holes and really looking at some of the harder to look at evidence, they're also finding this in the brains of children with autism. So there's a connection. There's obviously a connection. I'm not saying that I can't say that there's a cause, but I can tell you that both of those people with those diagnoses have heavier concentrations of aluminum that are somehow crossing into the brain. And that aluminum is found in many things. That's all I'm going to say about it. So I don't get the red flagged and censored, but this, it's certainly worth looking into.
And here's another thing about it. These minerals, the oral, they actually neutralize heavy metals such as aluminum, mercury, lead, arsenic in the heavy metal form. Okay, so they'll neutralize that in water. Now, a living person is about 80% water. That's all I'll say.
I got you. I'm sure many of our listeners have got you too. I have some fantastic and intelligent, consistent listeners.
I can imagine.
But so, man, I when I heard that you have been to a Dr. Joe retreat, you've been to a Dr. Joe retreat as well, right?
Yeah.
So I'm a student of Dr. Joe's. I've been to, oh man, I kind of lost count, but I probably seven retreats maybe, but I started going years ago when they were still 4-day retreats. And of course they changed my life. I love Dr. Joe. I could go on about him. He's an incredible human being. And when I heard that you were a student of his, and that, I was like, oh man, I gotta talk to this guy, but that's so incredible. How did you find Dr. Joe, and did you ended up going to a retreat, right?
So I ended up going to a retreat, actually the last one before COVID. So it was his last one.
Oh, okay.
In Palm Springs, Palm Desert. Yeah.
That's the one that they're using the blood from I don't know if you heard about this. So
I got the email, but I didn't read the whole thing. Tell me, yeah.
Yeah. So that when COVID went down, he couldn't do retreats. And so he was like, what can we do that is proactive for what's happening in the world right now? And so they wanted to test the blood of meditators against its reaction to something like COVID. But they were like, how can we do that? Because we can't have a retreat. We don't have a way to get people together and get blood and then test it against, whatever the CDC allows you to use as a substitute, because you can't take literal COVID. I'm sure there's a lot of reasons for that, which I won't go into. But you can't test against COVID, but you can test against their COVID substitute, right? So somebody, it was a scientist, was like, we have blood that we drew from all these people in the last retreat, which is the one you just mentioned. And they said, and they have before and after blood, right? So they were like, oh my God. They got together with this lab that has the clearance, and they exposed the before and after blood to COVID. And what they found was incredible. Like what the blood of the meditators, right, of the before and the after, the difference in the response to this, whatever this pathogen, whatever they had there, that was, it's what everyone has to use. It's what if you're doing any kind of test with COVID, you have to use this substitute that they provide. God, what they found is remarkable. When this comes out, it's going to really, I mean, if it can get the press that it deserves, it's going to blow the lid off a lot of things, I think. But of course, the blood was like freaking Superman in the face of this thing. I mean, this pathogen couldn't touch it. I mean, there was like, it was literally like it bounced off it like bullets bounce off Superman. In the same and this is after a 7-day retreat, like in the same person, the difference, the blood before and the blood after, like when this comes out, it's going to be incredible. I can't wait to share it. It's not, it's not out yet, but that's a little preview of what's coming. And, Dr. Joe's he's stayed busy, of course, throughout the pandemic. And I was at his retreat, and the first one he had back in November, the first one back in Florida, thank God for Florida. And it was awesome, and he was, it was just great, but I interrupted you and I went off on a tangent, but go tell me about how you found Dr. Joe, and that was your first retreat, the one that he did right before the shutdown.
Yeah, the first retreat. I started doing his work, but I've been doing meditation since I was 20. I started with Osho. I spent time in India, then Thailand. I studied with a Zen master in Israel, actually, for many years. I assisted him, and then I just continued. And I always was meditating since I'm 22 or something like that. And then I would teach meditation, teach workshops, stuff like that. And someone told me about Dr. Joe. I don't really remember who exactly. November 2019, I started doing his work, and game changer. It took my meditation practice to the next level, because the whole concept, or like the understanding of wait, oh, I'm bringing my awareness to the 99%. Oh, how did I not think about that? I become super conscious. It's not only, meditation is called observation. So I'm observing. So with his addition, I'm observing the observer. I'm like he said, he becomes super conscious. So so when I want to, do one of the meditations, or like breaking the habit of being yourself. So looking at an issue, which I do every day. Every day I pick one issue or one habit or one pattern or one limiting belief that I want to look at. And I do the whole preparation. I do the breathing. I breathe frequencies into the heart. I break out into the field, and then I I say hello to infinite mind, and I said, okay, I want to work on this.
Mm-hmm.
I become like way more aware of the impact of that pattern in my life. Like the awareness is like not multiple, even quadruple, or how much 100x, you know, like in terms of, and it helps. See, according to, when I have a pattern, or all human beings, we have patterns that we like habits. When a habit is inconducive, or when there is a habit, it's a program. Okay, as you know, right? There's a program in the subconscious program, and the subconscious deems that as safe. Not only that, as pleasure, and that's where it's going to be, safe and pleasure, even if it's detrimental. Okay, now the subconscious mind, if it will let go of that program, it thinks that this organism will die.
That's why it's so hard to change, because that's a subconscious feeling. It's very subliminal, but that's what makes it so hard to change, to quit something. You know, I always like to say, like, if you want to understand why it's, I mean, and people don't realize that all routines are habitual, you know, especially when there is pleasure centers involved, which is next to everything. But, you know, if you want to understand why it's hard to stop eating bread or cheese, for that matter, well, first of all, cheese parks itself in the same place that opiates and heroin does. Okay, that should come as no surprise to any cheese lover like myself. I'm like, I knew it. Son of a bitch.
Get goat cheese is good.
My God, I'm like, is it so good because it tastes so good, or is it so good because it lives in the same spot as heroin? I was like, it doesn't matter really. It's so good. But you know, I don't even know what I was saying. I started thinking about cheese, and of course, everything goes out the window. But you know what you're saying is yeah, it's about that the death that has to happen. You kind of have to go through that feeling of fuck, am I going to make it? You know, because that's what happens when you start to try to disentangle from some of the routines and habits that you have in your life, even at the expense of your well-being. So yeah, I mean, you hit it right on the head.
You know, the mind has to be convinced that if it lets go of a pattern that is no longer serving it, the organism will actually thrive, continue thriving. So through the meditations, I want to get present to the impact. I want to get present with my mind, observing the impact that specific pattern has on all areas of my life. Okay, because it's how I show up in one area, I show up everywhere. That's how it is. It's the same me. It's the same pattern. It's the same program all over. So in my health and my finances, my relationships, my satisfaction, my self-expression. So in order for my mind to agree to shift, I have to sit with the impact long enough for the mind to go, oh, that's actually not good. And I'm ready to stop abusing myself in that realm and believe that if I adopt a different way of being or a different belief system, I will be good. I'll actually be better.
Yeah. And that, the biggest challenge with that is sitting long enough to realize and to see and to honestly see what you're up to, what you've been up to. And it's, man, it takes you really got to have a thirst for self-improvement in all its facets, because most people, you have to be willing to get uncomfortable, and face yourself. And most people are like, it can be painful because you can start to figure out why you've developed these different coping mechanisms and habits and ways to avoid you're avoiding yourself, but that's not maybe the way it started, but that's the way it ends up. I always think it was Caroline Miss who said, I was at a seminar once. I was there listening to Dr. Joe and Greg Braden, and then she spoke, and she's a medical intuit, and she said, you know, when you don't address past traumas, you what you do is you put up a wall, and that wall affects your perspective. It affects how much you can see right now. And the more past traumas that come up that you are like, oh, I'll deal with that later, or you don't properly, you know, work through or grieve through or express, you know, the more walls you put up. And guess what happens to your vision? You know, you see less and less about yourself and what's going on, and that affects everything in your life. And so it's like what you're saying about being able to see first and be honest about what you're doing every day, and how you can change it to become a better version of you. That's the hardest part, I think, for people, you know.
Well, it's really also, and that's beautiful, because it really is limiting the view of who I am in the world, of what's possible for me. And if I'm here, you know, to serve the world, then how much can I serve? Like, if I can't serve myself, I can't serve anyone else, you know? So that's a beautiful, you know, the walls is definitely like that. And I wanted to say, where was that? It really is coming to term with the impact.
Yeah.
When I sit enough with the impact and how it's, because when I, you know, a person who's hurt people.
Yep.
You know, so if I'm bleeding, you know, if I'm bleeding not only on myself, you know, so there comes there comes a place where, okay, it's not only about myself I'm thinking right now, so my condition is actually affecting other people. Okay, so if I have a little bit of consciousness in that realm, that can be a convincer to start shifting myself, because I'm hurting others. Okay, because it's easier to care about others rather than self. So I don't want to hurt them, but wait, if I'm hurting them. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me look at that. You know, I've done a lot of years of Landmark. Have you heard about Landmark?
I've heard of Landmark, and I had a friend who, way back before I really got into everything and knew what was up, was talking to me about it. And I didn't really know much about what he was saying, or like what he was trying to get me into. But the more I hear about it, the more I'm like, oh, that's what Landmark is. Wow. You know, I mean, tell me a little bit about it. Just give me a summary.
Well, the big thing, or the context of it, is they break down difference between what happened, story I made about it, or the interpretation I made about it. So my mom said whatever at age 5, I made this mean such and such, and I collapsed both together. And so they actually go down to the bottom core of how we create stories and interpretations and limiting beliefs in the mind, from this happened and I made up this. So wait, take responsibility, because I made up this. This happened, I made up this. So it's all about taking responsibility and untangling the story between what happened. And then this leaves space. Like you said, the walls.
Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. I had no idea that's what Landmark was about. That's awesome.
Yeah, really amazing stuff. It adds tools for self-development. There's not a day that a lot of their work is really sitting with the impact of something. So it's a technology that I've already installed within me of how I deal with something. I'm automatic already, like, okay, what's the impact of these areas of life? And I sit with it for a second, and loosens up that limiting view on that specific aspect, you know. So another wall, and there's no shortcut, you know. It's like every day, and sometimes I have to observe an issue over and over and over again until, you know, it's like layers of it, you know.
Yeah, it's like, that reminds me of that old saying, you know, and it's so true. Sometimes you have to hear something 101 times to understand it, to get it that 100, you know, it's that 102nd time you're like, oh, that's what that means. I mean, you know, you could hear something intellectually for so long and never understand it. You know, it can never pass from knowledge to experience, but that's when it becomes wisdom. As you know, Dr. Joe teaches this so well about, knowledge is great, but it's not enough to just know. You have to begin to do and experience, and that's when you get wise. That's when you start to really see the changes and experience the changes in your life, when you start to embody the knowledge and experience it. He's good at teaching that. But that's dude, to hear you talk about Dr. Joe and how much it's amazing to me. I mean, he's an incredible dude, but always something to learn. I always encourage people, it's like, give it a try. You never know how much it's going to add to your you have this existing body of knowledge, and it's like a tree, literally in the mind. And, people are like, sometimes people get concerned about learning too much of one thing, but that's impossible because, as the mind will make room, and it just continues to build on this. The tree can get wider and wider. They looked at the brains of taxi drivers in New York City, and the part of their minds where the maps are huge, right? And they're like, these guys, wow, holy shit, they're like more powerful than any GPS. I mean, as far as Manhattan and the boroughs go. Same thing with chess masters. They thought these guys are probably ninth level geniuses, right? They their whole brains are probably this amazing structure. Well, they looked at their brains, and guess what? Besides the chess part, their brains are like everyone else's. That part where the chess is like, it's a masterpiece. It's very complex. They're great at chess, but they're, you put them in a Jeopardy match, and they're going to be like everyone else. They don't know everything just because they're good at chess. So it's like, there's always room for expansion in certain bodies of knowledge. It's not, you can't really get too much, I think.
That's why I learned from all kind of teachers, it's like from a lot of teachers. I've studied with all kind of different ones. And then I developed my own understanding of it. Like today, I no longer do the guided meditations by Joe. I use his technology, and I just put, music. There's pineal activating tracks for 10 hours on YouTube. I put a track.
Oh yeah.
And I just guide myself. And if I need to do an NLP process on myself while, to loosen something, I'll do it. So yeah, it's always what to learn. It's always
perfect segue. That's the next thing I wanted to talk to you about. I don't have a lot of knowledge about NLP. I know a little bit about it, but I know you have pretty extensive knowledge. Can you? And I'm sure there's people who are still like, "What's NLP again?" Can you tell them? Because I do see how this could be so beneficial for so many people to be exposed to this. So can you give our listeners a little tutorial?
So NLP, the context of NLP is to create a ecology, they call it. Ecology is good for self, good for others, good for environment, good for the world, or to create wholeness. Okay. The definition of NLP, or the word, the acronym, is neuro-linguistic programming. So rewiring the neurology using language, or using our own internal language, our own internal interpretation about something in our life. Let's say, a subject such as money. Okay, let me see what a person's thinking about money. Okay, money is difficult to make. Oh, wow. Okay, that's my language. That's my internal language. Let's go down into that. Okay, money is difficult to make. Why is it difficult to make? Because I grew up in a poor family, or it was stressful. So I made up all these language patterns or beliefs around money. So we can repattern that or rewire that, because an actual belief or a program is hardwired. Literally, it's a neurological pathway in the body. The subconscious, by the way, is not only here; it's the entire body. It's as much as it's here as in your eyes and everywhere.
It's absolutely sometimes I think it's more the body than it is the brain, because it so resides in the body. Yeah, go on. I'm sorry.
Exactly. So different techniques that address the source of our limiting beliefs. We can get to the source and we can rewire that pattern. We can create a whole different neurological pathway. So the mind will take the path of least resistance. So if the path of least resistance in the subject of, let's say, money goes into money is difficult to make. I think about money is difficult to make. Okay, so how can we change to a different neurological pathway where I think about money? Oh, suddenly, like you said, the wall's open and I can make money easy, or he's doing it. Therefore, if someone else is doing it, maybe I can. So there's ways to actually create new neurological pathways that, when practiced consciously, become the new path of least resistance.
Right. And if you believe that
it's all the same.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Finish what you were saying. I'm sorry.
I'm saying it's all similar work. Everyone's doing the same. It's just, it really comes down to do the work. Yeah. Period. Choose whatever, study whatever, study a lot of tools. Bottom line, if I have excuses of doing the work as much as I need in a day, and then it's all, nice concepts and books and head knowledge and titles, so
it's
like you said, we wake up at 6 a.m. We show up into a meditation. We do the work all day. How many times we meditate a day there? Like 6, 7 times.
Exactly. And when I don't, I just don't, I don't do as well. I'm not as mindful. And I mean that literally. I see my 10-year-old and I adore watching him walk around with one shoe on and it's the wrong foot. And he's perfect like that, but that's how I get when I do it. I'm getting to be too old for that to be okay. I need to be as mindful as I can be. It helps me, it helps me stay organized and on track, and it helps me be present with people and with my son, and it helps me enjoy watching him walk around with his, shoes on, but it's beautiful when it's part of a young and growing human being. But, you get older and you're just like, what's going on with that guy over there? It helps to be mindful. So, I have a practice that I do more than once, at least in the morning and at night. And then throughout the day, especially if I'm, people think that the less time they have, well, no, it's the opposite. If you are in a place where you're like, I don't have any time for that, then you have to spend more time doing that. And then you'll realize how much time you really have, because you lose perspective.
We become more effective when we spend more time intending to the operating system or our roots. T. Harv Eker says that roots create our fruits.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Roots create our fruits. I had a wonderful teacher, and she used to tell me, she's the one who introduced me to Dr. Joe's work. She recently passed. She was a friend. And I remember I used to tell her, our relationship started as she was a core therapist, and she would work with me, and she introduced me to Dr. Joe's work, and I was trying to do the meditations. They were a struggle at first. And, I would say to her, I remember I would say to her, I just don't have time. I don't have time. I got this to do. And she would say, Faust, just like, you don't understand that you're putting the horse or you're putting the cart before the horse. And I'm like, if I don't get anything done, how am I putting the cart before the horse? I don't get it. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't get it. And I think back and I laugh at that, because now, of course, I get it. And I tell people, I'm like, it's a shift in thinking, it's a big shift. If you're a materialist, it's a huge shift, but you understand exactly what I'm saying, I'm sure.
Even materialists, I mean, a lot of I was bringing up T.R. Vecker. You know T.R.
The name sounds familiar.
He used to have a company, Peak Potentials, or Millionaire Mind Intensive was his workshop. But he's a multimillionaire that went bankrupt several times and came back, and his whole methodology is by tending to the mind. So some of these, a lot of these materialists, so to speak, have a routine that they don't break for anyone, because they know that they got to feed the roots on a daily basis. Same like minerals. We need those minerals that come from the ground. It's all analogies. A mango tree will grow a mango if it tends to the roots. You can't paste a mango tree. You can't do a plastic surgery and create what that's going to look like that. So going back to where we started, there's no quick fix. And the common message of all the people who had crazy healings, amazing healings with Joe, is do the work every day.
That's right.
Every one of them,
consistency.
Right? Everyone, even when they were on the floor, they did the meditation. They were in pain, they did the meditation. They were bleeding, they did the meditation. So it's like, my Zen teacher that I studied with many years ago, he said, meditate, you take a shower every day. Meditation is a shower inside.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, it's so true. Some of the, and it's no wonder I think of, like, people hear those stories about Joe's retreats and some of the people who come out and they give testimony and they can't believe it. And the reason why they can't believe it is because they can't imagine the dedication that person had in order to get from, 1 year later, completely cancer-free. 1 year later, no more symptoms of Parkinson's, no more symptoms of ALS. Those are neurodegenerative diseases that, as far as we know, we don't know where they come from. We don't know how to treat them. I mean, we mitigate symptoms with them, but they're called neurodegenerative because allopathic medicine says we don't know how to fix it, and it only gets worse, and you're fucked, basically. And these people come and they use Joe's techniques, and they use everything that they've learned, and they show that it's not necessarily neurodegenerative. You can come back from it. You can actually, I know a woman who went from not being able to walk or talk, and then, when I met her, she was doing both, and she had ALS, which kills people, 6 months sometimes. So don't let anyone give you a diagnosis, then tell you what your destiny is. That's yours. For everyone who's listening, that is yours. You can bend it to your will. It's you are creating this, and it's your say. So I'm just encouraging anyone who, maybe listening, who heard something that scared them, or that they just, that's not necessarily, those are just words, it's yours. You're making it up as you go. So.
Yeah. All pain is self-inflicted.
Yeah.
And it's coming from the, at least exploring, at least considering, first of all, considering and exploring, later on accepting that I am causing the matter of my life, period.
Yeah. It's responsibility.
No one to blame. I can blame because it's a human regurgitation. I can be pissed. I can hate. I can do all that stuff. It's human emotions. And in the background, the observer already knows I'm responsible for all this mess. So whatever mess that I've created or that showed up in my life is not happening to me. I brought it to me. It's happening for me, and I'm causing the matter. So if I'm causing the matter, then I'm causing the matter. So like you said, if I can make myself sick, I can make myself healthy.
That's right. That's right. And so, it's a big shift.
Understanding and the result is the work.
That's right. That's right. And the claiming, the acknowledgement, the responsibility, that comes with saying, it's no one's fault but my own, and I'm not saying that there aren't instances where something isn't your fault, but what we're talking about is what people deal with on a daily basis, as in what they've created as their reality, And a lot of people have a very victim mentality about what they're experiencing every day, as if they don't drag themselves to and from it every day, and everything is someone else's fault. But that's a whole nother podcast that we can get into. But I want to take you far out with me, Nissim, because you're a far out dude, and I'm blown away by everything that you're doing. And so I want to know about your experiences, if you've had any, what your kind of beliefs are about extraterrestrial races, and if you've seen a UFO, if you've been on a UFO. I always joke and tell people the government says it's okay to believe in UFOs now. It's just in case you had any reservations about talking about it. That's okay now. So tell me what you think.
So in terms of, I lived in Shasta, Mount Shasta.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
And one time I went up to the mountain and I sat in my car. It was winter. So I sat in my car and I was drumming. I practiced drums, and I was looking behind, like, okay. And it was huge. It was just sitting there, like a UFO was sitting there. And I was like, okay, okay. They didn't do anything to me. He left afterwards, but it was there. In terms of believing it, of course I believe it. It will be very extremely ignorant for me to think that I'm the only, living.
There are people
in this universe in this, So, I would say that would be the extent. I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. I say, like, I did a few times plant medicine, where a ceremony where there was a period of time where it was erased from my memory. It was completely. So was I abducted, or was it the plant, or was it the spirit world of the plant that was doing something? I don't know. That's what people talk about alien abduction. Some part of the day disappeared.
Yeah.
3 hours disappeared, no recollection. Like, oh, we remember 2 p.m. Now it's 5. What happened in 3 hours? Or it can be even 12 minutes. So that's the extent of my experiences. I do firmly believe in it.
Do you think that we'll see, and I should say, do you think that humanity will come to a point where we see a greater acknowledgement and start to see our place in this big galaxy that we're living in, and in our lifetime? Do you think that's? You see the disclosure that's happening a little bit right now, that's becoming mainstream, which is, of course, very handpicked and manipulated, and pretty much a bunch of bullshit. But because anything that the Pentagon is confirming, you can rest assured is with an agenda. Let me just say that. But people who have been involved in this community know that UFOs they've always been around. They've been around since humans have been here, and I'm sure long before. But I'm just wondering if you think in our lifetime we'll see the acknowledgement, and even hopefully the interaction with another species not from this planet.
I believe so, just because the destruction where the planet is going to, and there was a lady, I went, Dolores Canaan.
Oh, I know Dolores. Yeah.
So she speaks of it. She says, "Look, there's other dimensions of living in now. Like, we can't see them because I'm in a certain dimension. Just like in Joe's workshop, where he brings up, and then the blue beings show up, or
the tall beings. Yeah.
So they're here, same dimension, but they will not reduce their vibration. They're too much vibrating love, so we have to vibrate to them. Okay, so what she's saying, which really, she's super intelligent, super connected. She says, look, there's different dimensions here, and if there's too much trouble that is created by low vibrational beings, too much this, too much bombs, too much, it disrupts the balance of the other dimensions. That's when they will interfere and we will see them.
Yeah.
And there's been sightings of soldiers from Iraq, American soldiers, that say that they saw beings come and dismantle nuclear, setups.
Dude, I'm gonna send you a link to a video, of a UFO disarming a warhead that was being sent into space. I mean, and this is where they've been doing this really since after Roswell was really the first kind of public shit show that went on. But we're not, listen, you can let the children play in the playground until they start throwing daggers at each other, and then you have to do is take the daggers away so they can't hurt each other, and if they have bombs, even worse, because I'm of the belief that when you're setting off these weapons of mass destruction, you're not just tearing a hole into three-dimensional reality, especially if you go into space. Now you're screwing up things that are beyond your capacity to perceive. And so, I am of the mind, and I'm going to just out myself as crazy, but, I believe that when we started detonating these weapons of mass destruction, these atomic and nuclear weapons, that there was a call that went out that said, so you're going to have to go in. These are higher vibrational beings. They're in touch with source, AKA God, AKA, the universe, the creator, who I believe is benevolent and looking out for us as much as possible. I mean, we are of it, it's not a he or a she in my understanding and belief, but, I believe that they are trying to give us as many chances as they can for us to get it right, for us to survive long enough to evolve to a greater state. And so, the fact that we have all these terrible weapons and that we can destroy ourselves with the press of a few buttons, and now we're trying to send them into space. And the fact that they are saying no, and they're doing it in a way that doesn't harm anyone, that just makes the weapon inert. If that's not benevolent, if that's not an act of benevolence, and of course they're going to try to say it's a threat, but I don't know what is. You know what I mean? They're taking our ability to destroy ourselves away over and over, and they have. I mean, more times than you can possibly imagine over the past 50, 60 years. And I just think that that's an incredible sign that, these beings that are here are here for good reason. And that's my spiel about that. But I'm going to send you a video. Maybe we can find it and include it in the podcast. But
yeah,
some incredible video of
Dolores says something right on. She says, because there's law of free will, they cannot intervene.
That's right.
Until, which gives them a reason to intervene, because there's free will, meaning you can blow stuff up, you can murder this person, you can do it when it affects them. That is the reason. They're not breaking the law, but it's affecting them as well. So they're exercising their free will as well. It's amazing, galactic laws and rules. It's so amazing. And she's super connected because she developed, she's a hypnotherapist. She passed away, her daughter is now working. She developed a method where she can get with any person, bring them to ultimate wisdom or to source, to communicate with their higher self.
Awesome.
And through their own, she brings them to that state and they'll start talking. They're connected and they'll start talking.
Start almost like channeling. Yeah.
Amazing.
So cool. I'm going to check out, I know a little bit about her, but I'm really interested. I'm going to check her out now. Yeah. Now that I've learned more about her through you. So let me ask you one of my favorite questions to ask, and a man who's as well-traveled and studied as you are, I get excited about this answer, but if you could whisper into the ears of every sleeping human being on the planet and give them a suggestion, which I know that you know how to do very well anyway, but if you could give them plant a seed that they could take with them into their life when they woke up, what seed would you plant? What would you give them? What would you say to them?
What seed would I give them? the seed that the one sentence that Jesus said, love thy neighbor like yourself, that sentence takes a lot of work, though at the end of the day, love and compassion is the solution for self and others. And now get to work and find out whatever is standing in the way of exercising that. And I'm speaking for myself as well, of course. What is standing in my way from exercising that to myself and to others, and to continue doing it every day, continuing that path.
I love that, man. That's
whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes. And you hit it right, because you said, it takes a little bit of work. It's easy to say and harder to do, but with practice, you get better at it. And, I always think about what I would say to that question if I was ever asked it. And one of the things that always comes to mind is what Jesus said, about seeing yourself in others and loving them as you would yourself. Because it becomes cliched because we say it, but if you practice it and you understand the profundity of it, it's certainly not cliche. It's everything. And it's a little bit of work, but I love your answer, Nissim. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, man. And I appreciate your time. And I'm so grateful that you came on, and we're going to have to do it again because there's just so much to talk about. But for our listeners, Nissim was kind enough to give, we're going to get a 5% discount on his Native Mystic line of products. And there's a lot there for you to check out. So I'm going to include a code in the video description for you guys. Thank you so much for that, Nissim. I appreciate that. I'm sure that people will take advantage of it.
There's nutritional supplements for nutrition. There's mood and cognitive enhancement. There's heart centering formulas. There's immunity boosting. I even make perfumes and creams. It's all
saw that.
Yeah, really high level stuff. The sourcing of them, which is a whole nother conversation. We have a minute. I can say something.
Sure, go ahead. Yeah.
So the interesting thing out of why I took my time to research before I just slapped the label on something and wrote a wave and said, oh, everyone likes reishi, let me just find reishi and sell it, or ashwagandha. It's not the thing. What I've discovered is that a lot of the industry or the supplement industry or the natural product industry is very low grade ingredients because it's a margins number game, mostly to levels where I can tell you stories that you'll be amazed. I mean, I post sometimes stuff on Facebook. People call me. It's like, what? We can't believe it, So a lot of low-grade ingredients. And let's say for $200, I can buy you supplements for your entire life and for your grandchildren. That's how cheap, the cheapest quality that exists is there and is found in Whole Foods on the shelf, sadly. So the sourcing that I do is handpicked. I handpick my suppliers. I want to know where their heart is, where their intention is. The herbs that I use are mostly from, I would say entirely from the geographical location that herb is supposed to grow in, because that is why it gives the properties that it does give. So my chaga mushroom is from Siberia. It takes 60 years for this mushroom to mature. If I send you 60 years to Siberia, you come back, you're my bodyguard. I'm hiring you. So you endured 60 years of extreme conditions. That's the mushroom I want, and I'll get it from there. So I'll wait for years for the right ingredient.
Yeah.
So that's just a little bit of quality. We use Myron glass, which is biophotonic. It allows UVA and infrared rays to enter, which preserves and enhances the contents.
Very cool.
It costs 25 times more than regular glass. I don't care. For me, it's about quality.
Yeah.
So people buy clothes and shoes. I buy herbs and ingredients that are very expensive.
but everything you do is with incredible integrity, and it's easy to cut corners. It's easier to cut corners, but it's hard to maintain that level of integrity. And you do it, Nissim, and I appreciate that. And you sent me a bunch of products, and I didn't get a chance to delve into them, too many of them before the podcast, but when we'll have to do a follow-up because I'm excited to get into all these and try some of these. And I appreciate that. So we'll definitely we'll do it again. And that way I can talk a little bit about some of the products that you sent and we'll go from there, man. But thank you so much for your time, Nissim. I appreciate it, man.
Very much. Thank you.
You take care, man. Talk soon.
Thank you.